Welcome to the Artwork of You, the podcast where your life is the canvas and you are the masterpiece. I'm your host, Lori Gouhin, and together we'll explore creativity, self-awareness, mindset, goal strategy, and the importance of accountability so that you can paint your life's portrait with confidence and ease. Remember, in the gallery of life, you're not just a spectator, you are the art. So let's grab our brushes and start creating the masterpiece that is you. Hello, my friends. I am so glad that you are here with me today because today I want to talk about making 2025 your most creative year yet. I know that I talk a lot about creativity on the podcast, but I also think it's good to be constantly reminded that we are inherently creative, meaning that we are all creators. And last week on episode 62, I talked all about making 2025 the year of mastery. Well, what about tying creativity into that? Because I think that by mastering creativity, you are more able to master anything else. So let's uncover your unique creative potential and let it shape how you experience the year ahead. So whether you think of yourself as a creative or not, I'm going to invite you to listen in and challenge yourself to see what's possible. Now, as a refresher, let's start by rethinking what creativity really means. Because for so long, creativity has been put in this little box reserved for artists, writers, musicians, people in the quote unquote creative fields. But the truth is, creativity is not just about what you make, it's about how you see and approach the world. In other words, it's a mindset, it's not a skill set. Think about this. Creativity is woven into your problem solving, your ability to connect ideas, and even how you approach the challenges of your everyday life. You do not have to be painting murals or inventing groundbreaking tech to be considered creative. You just have to start seeing opportunities for creativity in places that you might have overlooked. I call this micro creativity. These are the small intentional choices we make to add an interest to our routines. For example, when you cook dinner, could you experiment with a new spice or ingredient? When you're cleaning up your home, could you rearrange a room to feel more energizing? Or when you're having a tough conversation, could you approach it with curiosity and compassion rather than a fixed mindset? That's the beauty of micro creativity. It's because it doesn't require tons of time, money, or talent. It simply asks you to be present and curious. So here's a practical way that you can begin. Choose one area of your life where you felt stuck or bored or uninspired. It could be how you approach your mornings, how you communicate with someone, or even how you organize a space in your home, like I recently did with my bedroom. So what's your version of that? Where could you try something new, even in the smallest way? Because creativity doesn't need to feel like a big production. Sometimes it's simply asking yourself, what if I did this differently? And when you ask that question often enough, it becomes a habit. And that habit, well, that's what makes your life feel more intentional, more energized, and really uniquely yours. And don't let constraints hold you back. Most people think of limits as barriers to their creativity. But the truth is, constraints can actually cause some of the most innovative ideas. Think about this. When you're faced with infinite possibilities, it's very easy to get overwhelmed. But when you narrow your option, your brain has to work harder to solve the problem within those boundaries. Think about the original 140 character limit on Twitter. That constraint forced people to get incredibly creative with how they communicated because it wasn't about writing less, it was about writing smarter. So, how can you use this idea in your own life? Start small. Pick a creative challenge and impose a playful rule on yourself. Maybe you're redecorating a room, but limit yourself to using only items that you already own. Or if you're cooking, try making a meal with, say, just 5 ingredients. If you're working on a business goal, give yourself a tight deadline or a limited budget. For example, I recently created a painting using only 3 colors, which is something I never do. And in this painting, I used white, black, and gold. And at first, it did feel very restrictive. But as I worked, I started seeing possibilities that I would not have noticed if I had access to all the colors that I usually use. And by the end, I created something that felt really bold and exciting. And I realized that those limits were actually gifts because they pushed me to think differently. And now this doesn't just apply to art or business. You can think about how you can add constraints into your personal growth. Like, what if you committed to journaling for just 10 minutes a day or practiced gratitude for just three things before bed? These small quote unquote rules, they can lead to big breakthroughs because they will focus your energy. So choose one area where you feel stuck or uninspired and add a constraint, something playful, something challenging, but not so overwhelming that it feels impossible, and then see what happens. Because again, constraints aren't barriers, they're invitations to innovate. And when you embrace them, you start to realize that limitations can actually lead to your most creative ideas. Now, let's talk for a minute about something that I would say gets overlooked. And that's that creativity isn't always a solo act. In other words, you don't have to do it alone, nor should you. I mean, there are moments when it's just you and your thoughts, but some of the best creative breakthroughs come from engaging with other people, especially people who think differently than you. I want you to think about this. How often do you collaborate or share ideas with someone outside of your usual circle? It's very easy to surround ourselves with like minded people, but true creativity will thrive in diversity. When you hear new perspectives that challenge your own, and when you see how someone views something completely different, or if they're in a different field or occupation altogether, how they approach a problem. So share ideas with someone who might not see things the way that you do. Here's how you can make this work in your own life. For starters, just seek out conversations with people who have different skills or backgrounds or interests than you do. Maybe it's a friend who works in a completely different industry, as I said, or someone you admire but never thought to ask for advice. You could even join a group or a community where people come together to share ideas, whether it's for business or hobbies or just for fun. And collaboration does not have to be formal. Even casual conversations can spark something new. Often, just explaining your idea to someone who is unfamiliar with it can really help you clarify it in your own mind. So, here's a challenge for you. Think of one person that you can connect with this month who might help you see things differently. It doesn't have to be about solving a problem or working on a project or anything like that. It can really just be as simple as having a conversation where you exchange ideas because you never know what might come from it. One of my favorite things to do is set up virtual coffee chats with basically strangers on the internet. They may be people that we follow each other or we might comment on each other's posts, but in reality, I don't know them at all. But more often than not, it leads to great conversations and connection. And creativity thrives on connection. So step outside of your comfort zone and seek out those unexpected collaborations. It can really transform the way you think and create. I also want you to remember to build unstructured time into your schedule. That is so important. And it's not laziness, it's a creative superpower, in my opinion. For example, I like to set aside time every day where I allow myself to do whatever interests me in the moment. Now, I try to do it after I've already accomplished many of my goals or tasks for that day, or sometime around midday when I need to take a break. And so maybe I'll flip through a book that I haven't touched in years, or a magazine, or I'll explore a random topic online, or sit on my back porch and let my mind just wander. It doesn't really matter what it is, because you know what? Some of my best creative ideas have come from those moments of intentional exploration. Here's another thing to keep in mind. Great ideas often come from exposure to new experiences. If you're always doing the same things and going to the same places and talking to the same people, you're really limiting the inputs that your brain has to work with. And don't underestimate the power of curiosity. Ask questions, even about things you think you already know. Follow your curiosity. When you approach life with curiosity, you start to see connections and opportunities everywhere. One thing that my husband and I have been doing recently, we love to go out to dinner. And generally, we would always just get a table unless, the restaurant was packed or booked. And then once in a while, we'd sit at the bar, or maybe we would just try another restaurant. Lately, I'd say over the past 6 months, we intentionally always sit at the bar because it allows us to make connections. We always strike up conversation with the people sitting next to us or a couple of seats down. And it's just added a whole new level of enjoyment to the dining experience for us. I mean, we also like to sit at a quiet table by ourselves and have conversation. But again, as I said, it's just fun to sit and to get curious about the people next to you and ask them questions and make new friends. So I encourage you to schedule just a small pocket of unstructured time this week and use it to explore something new. It doesn't have to be a big commitment. It doesn't have to be sitting at the bar, going out to dinner, but just take 10 or 15 minutes to let your curiosity lead the way and pay attention to what pops up because you might be surprised at what you discover. And now I want you to take a moment to step into the future, not just to imagine what your life could look like, but to connect with the version of you who has already unlocked their creative potential. Think of your future self as a creative partner, someone who can guide you and inspire you to take the steps that you might not be confident enough to take yet. Visualize yourself 1 year from now. It's December 2025, and you've just had your most creative year yet. What does your life look like? What have you accomplished? How do you feel when you wake up in the morning? What kinds of projects have you worked on? What challenges have you overcome? And how did you tackle them creatively? Imagine that future self sitting down with you today. What advice would they give you? What would they tell you to stop worrying about, to focus on, or to let go of? This is how you actively collaborate with the person you're becoming. When I have new goals and targets, I am constantly picturing the version of me who has already accomplished the things I'm working toward. That version reminds me to stop overthinking and start experimenting and to let go of the need for everything to be perfect and just take the next small step. And that one shift in mindset really does make a difference. The truth is, your future self is not as far away as you might think. They're just waiting for you to take the first step, to trust that the path will unfold as you move forward. And by regularly checking in with this future version of yourself, you can keep your creativity aligned with your goals and your vision. It might help to write down what your future self would tell you. No judgment, no overthinking, just write. And then pick one piece of advice and act on it today, even if it feels small. When you approach the year ahead as a collaboration with your future self, you're actively creating. And when you create with intention, there's no limit to what you can achieve. So let's shift gears for a minute and talk about the discomfort. I know that most of us probably think of creativity as something fun and light and joyful, and it absolutely can be and is. But the other side of that is that some of the most profound creativity happens when we're willing to lean into discomfort. Because think about it, creativity often requires trying something new, taking risks, or putting yourself out there in a way that feels vulnerable. That's not always easy. In fact, it can feel extremely uncomfortable. But from my experience, discomfort is often at the heart of creativity. My podcast, my art business, my coaching business, emailing those people who subscribe to my list, and heck, even picking out our new bedroom furniture all began with discomfort and indecision, especially when my friend Sarah said, "Oh, it's very feminine about my new furniture." And then I was like, oh my God, is this like a princess in the pea bed? And it kind of is, actually, but whatever. We laughed about it and I love it. So it's all fine. But anyway, discomfort isn't a sign that something's wrong. It's a signal that you're stretching beyond your comfort zone. And when you're willing to stay in that space, even when it feels awkward or uncertain, you unlock new levels of creativity. So, how do we lean into that discomfort without letting it overwhelm us? First, I would say just reframe the way you think about it. See it as an indicator that you're on the edge of something new. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? What's on the other side of this feeling? Second, take small intentional steps. You do not have to dive headfirst into massive challenges. Start with something manageable. Maybe it's sharing an idea that you've been hesitant about, trying a new skill that feels intimidating, or tackling a problem that you've been avoiding. When I first started putting my creative work out into the world,
I was terrified of rejection, but I made a deal with myself. I would embrace the discomfort and see it as part of the process. Every no became an opportunity to refine my ideas, and every awkward moment taught me something valuable. And over time, that discomfort became less intimidating, and the creative breakthroughs definitely became more frequent. So find one small way to lean into discomfort this week. Again, it doesn't have to be something huge and challenging. And finally, let's talk about creating a ritual, a practice that will anchor your creativity and set the tone for the year ahead. Rituals also don't have to be elaborate or time consuming. They just need to be meaningful and consistent. Think of it like a touchstone, something you can return to regularly to keep your creative energy flowing. Here's an idea. What if, at the start of every month, you set aside time to explore one creative question, something open ended, something that sparks your curiosity? It could be as simple as, what's one thing I want to try this month that I've never done before? Or how can I approach this awkward or uncomfortable situation in a completely different way? Write down your answer and then spend a month letting that question guide you. Another ritual that I love is a brain dump, and that's sitting down with a notebook and writing out every idea that comes to mind. Big, small, ridiculous, practical, it doesn't matter. Don't filter yourself and don't judge. The goal isn't to act on every idea, but to clear mental space and make room for the truly inspired ones to stand out. Or maybe your ritual can be more tactile, like starting each day with a blank piece of paper and drawing or doodling or mind mapping, whatever's on your mind. Even 5 minutes of this can shift your perspective and help you approach the day with fresh eyes. In my new daily accountability journal, 30 Days of Success, there is a space for you to take a few minutes to reflect at the end of your day on what went well. It could be a moment of connection, a piece of art, a new idea, or even a mistake that taught you something. You can write it down and ask yourself, how can I bring more of this into my life tomorrow? It's a simple way to stay connected to what inspires you and to keep building on that creativity and energy. You can grab the journal on my website, and there's also a link in the show notes. I'm using it myself, and I hope that you will too. I'm really loving it. Because rituals anchor us, they remind us to prioritize our creativity, even in the midst of busy days and the endless to-do lists that we all have. And when you make that commitment to yourself, you cannot help but transform. And so as we wrap up today, I want to leave you with a thought. And that is, creativity isn't something you stumble upon or wait for. It's something you cultivate moment by moment through the choices you make and the way you engage with the world around you. This year, what if creativity wasn't just an occasional moment, but a way of life for you? What if it shaped how you solve your problems, how you connect with others, and even how you see yourself? Creativity is not confined to big dramatic breakthroughs. It's often found in the quiet, everyday moments where you decide to approach something differently or give yourself permission to explore the unknown. Here's what I want you to carry into 2025. Every creative act, no matter how small, is an investment in your future. It's not just about what you create, it's about who you become in the process. And when you approach life creatively, you're saying yes to growth, to possibility, and to the belief that there's always more to discover, not just in the world, but in yourself. And remember, creativity thrives in connection and conversation. So share your ideas, ask questions, and invite others into your process. I'd love to hear about the rituals you're creating, the challenges that you're tackling, and the moments of serendipity that you're going to encounter along the way. And if you're ready to take that leap, to stop waiting for the right moment and start living more creatively and intentionally, I would love to support you. Through my coaching, we'll work together to uncover your unique creative potential, set meaningful goals, and build a strategy that's tailored to your life. Whether you're feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or you simply are ready for something more, I can help you move forward with clarity and confidence.
That's a wrap for today, my friends. Thank you for sharing your time with me. And remember to show up in your life like the masterpiece you are, because you are the artwork. Please subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Have a fabulous day.